What is up, my little Deinos? Vepsis here, your coach of the Helsinki Hydreigons, and we are here for my AP Academy draft analysis for a low tier format that we are gonna be playing this season. As of right about now, I'm gonna be showing on the screen in itself the document and kind of like the tiers, how they are looking. At this point, you see a lot of mons like crossed over because they have been already picked. But the basic idea of showing this way is that you kind of see a little bit of the mons that are allowed and what is going to be bad. In a basic concept, this is basically a format where all of the like tier 2s and tier 1s for the most part in draft league format, or in a point system draft, I would say around 30 pointers and above would be banned in this format. So it's kind of like the idea of that, okay, we are playing in a format where the lower tier stuff that normally show up in 2 or 3 games, they are all of a sudden really prevalent factors to be used in this kind of format, and I'm excited for that. This is gonna be the first time I'm really playing this kind of format, especially for Wi-Fi scenes. I'm really excited for it. So now let's just jump into what I'm gonna be able to draft in the first round, where I was the 15th pick of the 16th pick, and the courses are in the league in itself as my round 1 pick. And by the way, before I forget to say, make sure to check out all of the coaches down below in the description who are taking part of this league. Their draft analysis will be going up today, like mine has been going up today as you'll be watching this. But now, jump into my first round pick that all of a sudden was able to make back to me as a 15th overall pick. I thought this would be a top 5 pick at very least for coaches to go after. So going to this draft, I had no idea what I want in round 1. I was kind of like expecting and waiting to see what falls to me. But once I saw this falling to me, I was like, alright, I'm taking this, I don't care. The guy after me can do his will, who was, I believe, MidPokeMaster. So I took this before he got the chance to do his will pick. And Shuckleking is a phenomenal bulky water type for this format. Like, I've been loving so much of using Slowbro in Generation 8, which is probably really easy to notice when I drafted so much. But I cannot help it because teleport in a bulky water type with a regenerator. Regenerator ability is so good. It's one of the best abilities in a draft league metagame, or in a like competitive metagame in general. So Shuckleking is gonna be a phenomenal asset for me because I can just wall so many things, either from physical side thanks to its water psychic typing, or because how naturally especially bulky it is, it can be a phenomenal special wall as well. And you cannot sleep on it either offensively wise. Trick Room sets, Calm Mind sets, Nasty Plot sets, all those can actually turn into an asset that I can also use to break down opposing walls and still be effective to wall others' offensive threats as well. So I love the versatility that this thing offers, and you kind of see the move pool slaying out on the screen right about now, or already have been seeing it before this, because that's how I want to do this draft analysis. Each pick I'm gonna be showing their move pool as it's gonna be showing while I'll talk about this. So Shuckлекing's wide move pool, its natural typing and bulk made it a phenomenal asset for this team, and it's gonna be a very good asset to a Volt Turn offense and bulky offense that I was kind of leaning towards to when I saw more and more the tiers that what kind of draft I want to do, because I didn't really have a good grasp of like what is the most effective way to play in a low tier format, since I haven't never done it before. So that's kind of the approach I wanted to take, and Shuckleking is gonna be the premier asset for us to do so. And as my round 2 pick, I was able to select myself Talonflame, and this mon was actually something that I was expecting realistically to be my round 1 pick, and I thought something like Shuckleking would be way past of my expectations to fall to me. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this still fell to me in round 2 as Mid skipped on it. So I was like, you know what, I'm grabbing this bird for myself, because having a fast revenge killer and offensive mon is so hard to find in low tier format. It's already hard enough in a standard league format to try to fulfill that role with a mon that really fulfills your desires, what you look after it, and this mon kind of feels that for me, because I want my fast offensive revenge killer to have momentum on it as often as possibly it can to have that. And I think it's so nice that whenever you can send out in the field, if you think your opponent is swapping out and they are forced to do so, I can click U-turn for free, and then I can just keep up my momentum if I think they are preserving something, and then I have strong powerful dual stab of Brave Bird and Vepsis to rely on whenever I need to go for a kill. I know its attack stats aren't that impressive, but especially for low tier format, I think they are way way good enough to do that role well. And all I need to do is really to have proper wall breakers to surround it with, especially to get around with like bulky rock types or bulky water types in general look a little bit annoying to me. So that's something just for me to focus on my following picks to make sure that the checks and counters that my opponent could have for my Talonflame, I have the proper answers to them, and that's something that I'm gonna be focusing on very closely on these following few rounds. And as my round 3 pick, I decided to go after Beakervolt, which is gonna be one of the new mons for me to use. I think the only time I have really got to use it in Draft League format it was in the NPL, but with the way the NPL back then it was kind of playing out the main season, I don't really consider it as a full season of experience because how the league died unfortunately back then. But now, this season in the AP Academy will be one of my first times to reuse this mod again, hopefully throughout the whole season itself, and I think it's gonna be a phenomenal asset for me. It's that offensive breaker that I was looking for on the special side with its phenomenal special attacks that you see on the screen, and its move pool coupled with its dual stab of Bug and Electric is going to be very good. With Energy Ball on an elected type is a very valuable asset because it's not now walled by the ground types. It has Bug Box for its Bug Stab in itself that is going to be very strong, and it be able to hit the bulky grass types as well, which could sometimes deal with your elected types, but that's not the case for Beakervolt. It gives me sticky web support if I need to or try to pressure my opponent in their prep in having to prepare for that scenarios in itself. And it just gives me that strong breaker to get rid of those bulky water types that the Talonflame will be struggling with whenever we have to see them, and kind of helping Shuckleking doesn't have to like stall them out itself either. So I have something that can immediately pressure them and have that Volt Turn action or Volt Turn teleporter core that I have kind of with my first 3 picks. I can definitely keep up the initiative in my advantage with these 3 mons, but now that I'm looking at it, we're a little bit rock weak, so I definitely could use a proper steel type and a proper ground type to add on than this, so we don't get too much demolished by even a rock throw if they are throwing at us at any part of the battle. So that's something for me to worry about for my next few picks, and let's go and see what kind of mons I'm able to pair with these 3 mons. And as my round 4 pick, I decided to go after my steel type, which are very hard to find in low tier format, and I'm glad that more like Copperajah still fell into me, cause this mon paired with Shuckleking can be very deadly trick room asset that I can also add. Now I have a fast revenge killer with Talonflame, I have sticky web asset to my arsenal, but I also have trick room that I can utilize as one form of team building and as a winning condition. And Copperajah is a very strong physical attacker that can really work well on my team because of the assets that I already have on it and what I can add later on. And this is a mod that I was really actually excited to use in the UBL Season 5, which just ended, and I'm happy that I get it back here because I didn't get to use it in too many games there, but here I expect to be brought almost every single week, if not every single week, because pure steel typing is such a good defensive typing, and while it doesn't have the most impressive defensive stat, coupled with that HP, with its pure steel typing, I can definitely mold it to take those hits and these bigger hits back. And its move pool, my goodness, its coverage, man. There aren't many generation mods that can actually call their move pool full of coverage. Let me tell you that, but that Copperajah right there, it can call its move pool having some coverage. We have Heat Crash, we have Earthquake, we have Power Whip, we have everything, man, that we need on Copperajah, and I'm excited to use this mod. Both it can be a bulky, offensive like a wall or a pivot. It's not necessarily a pivot because it doesn't unfortunately get access to momentum, but I can swap it into certain hits thanks to its pure typing, and then I can just go mowing through my opponents with this mod, and I'm really excited for that. So that is going to be our steel type of the draft, and now let's go and see what ground type I end up drafting on our team so we just don't straight out lose to a Geodude. And as my round 5 pick, I decided to go after Golurk as my ground type and a ghost type to add on it, as well as its dual typing. And this mon is very intriguing, exciting mon for me to use in a low tier format. I think already in a standard play, when he got access to now Poltergeist, it's gonna be very slept on mod, and in a low tier format, this is a low key menace, man, or high key honestly. Like this Mon hits so hard. This is one of the mons that I think that as we're gonna be looking back on my draft and think like what is going to be the hidden MVPs of this draft. I believe Golurk can be that, like its move pool, couple of its abilities of Iron Fist or No Guard, especially with Poltergeist. I don't have to worry about missing that move. I'm always hitting them and hitting hard with my couple of it being stab and 110 base power. Then I have already that powerful stab of Crown stab in Earthquake, and then I have the coverage, like coverage of this thing and Copperats are what they share together, like it's insane. Like when I put these two on the field and they decide that alright, it's time to wreck shit up, they're gonna be wrecking shit up, man. Like they are insane. And I love the fact that I had myself a second stealth rocker in a row, both of them kind of offensive stealth rockers. So we'll see how often I end up actually going for that move, because most often they really love just to hit things instead of doing any other shenanigans. But either way, I'm really excited for Golurk, man. Like it's going to be a lot of fun using this mod. I have a good feeling about it, and hopefully you have as well. And now we don't straight up lose to Geodude. How about that? 5 picks in, and I finally discovered a way not to lose to that mod or anything like sharing that kind of typing. So we just move along and see. I believe next up we are gonna be looking at my fighting type that I'm looking after, and I'm on with its price. I think it's pretty nice pick for us. And as my round 6 pick, I decided to pick myself Beware, which is going to be a normal fighting type that I have never ever used in draft league format. Not a single battle. And I'm excited for it, because this thing has been a mod that I've been thinking such a long time that can I ever have an excuse of picking this thing? Then I always pick up type Null and Diggersby and what other normal types or Snorlax, and then I'm like, well, I don't have really excuse to do that. But none of those things are around right now for me to pick other than type Null, and I wasn't really figuring about type Null, so we do something new. And Beaver with the fluffy ability is gonna be so disgustingly bulky if I want it to be. And just like my other 2 picks before this one, it hits so hard on the physical side. Normal and fighting stab is pretty tough to already switch into, and thankfully in this generation it finally started to get some kind of coverage to hit ghost types as well. It has now Throat Chop, it has Shadow Claw. Those are pretty much good enough for it to go for. I wish it got knockoff, man. Like look at its paws, man. Like look at its paws, they are so cute, but my goodness, could those knockoff hard items as well for my opponent. I just wish it got that as its move, then it would be so good, man, so good. But I love Beaver. I think it's gonna be a really fun mod to use, and I think it's gonna be something in 7 points that people are gonna be looking after, like, huh, that mod is pretty good, and it was 7 points. Why didn't I think about that drafting for myself? Why didn't I go for it earlier if I did? But I'm glad they didn't, because it's mine now, and I'm really excited for it, as you can tell. So that's gonna be my round 6 pick, and now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 7. And as my round 7 pick, I decided to go after my dog type for this draft, and that is going to be Sneasel. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is a mod that I've been criticizing in the past, and been a mod that I don't really look forward to ever drafting in a standard play in a draft league format. But after seeing how many dog types were going, something that I was actually looking after the most was Zoroark. But unfortunately MattOshea took that a little bit before this turn of my hero in round 7. So I was like, okay, from the dog types that are left, as much as I haven't been fan of this mod before, I have to go after Sneasel. I think it's my best bet, and it provides me some more speed on this team. I didn't have too much speed other than Talonflame on my team. I do have sticky webs, I have my Trick Room code to be utilized, but I want some natural speed on this team, and I think Sneasel with its dual stab, just like Viva always in a standard draft league format, has been phenomenal with knockoff and Isoku Crash / triple action that it got now access to. This thing gets same moves basically as well. The only difference obviously is that it's not as strong, but for a low tier format where there aren't as many like really bulky things that Sneasel would otherwise nowhere shape or form be good enough to break, in this format I think it's gonna be a lot more efficient, and I will expect myself to liking it a little bit more in this kind of format, and expect myself to actually bring it into games where in a standard format I would have been very more hesitant of doing so. So I'm excited for Sneasel, I'm giving it another chance. I think it's gonna do a lot better than I give it credit for otherwise in a standard play. So in this in this pick in round 7 for things that were available in a dark type. I think this was my best thing to go after, and from there on out, let's go and see what I was able to select in round 8. And in round 8 I decided to go after Tangela as my grass typing and forming a regenerator core with my first round pick with Shuckleking, what I already got over there. And this honestly actually was planning to be a Mungus at some point of the draft, but unfortunately I believe it was PlatinumHowler that took a Mungus, and I couldn't do that more disgusting regenerator core. But what ended up happening from there is that he had to take that. I was actually expecting it not to be picked because Mungus was relatively expensive from my point of view to be picked, and maybe a lot of other coaches skipped on it as well. But we didn't end up getting it either way. Someone else wanted it more than we did, so I decided that, you know what, down the line I think Tangela will be not as good as a Mungus obviously, but it will be good still nonetheless. And just having a grass type that can resist ground type hits is actually gonna be pretty nice for us. It's a little bit annoying that it's a Eviolite mon, so therefore it's gonna be a little bit knockoff weak. But I have things that can switching on it, especially when I pick Beaver up. Like Beaver on the team made me a lot more less awkward or less like uncomfortable of picking a mon like this to be on my team, because Beaver can switch into knockouts and not really care about it if I need to do that kind of play. And I think Tangela with the regenerator mon, it gives me a nice answer to electric types because my ground type is so offensive in Golurk. So it's nice to have another way to get around them, because my first 2 picks of Shuckleking and Talonflame, which I expected to come basically every single week, they're gonna be sharing that electric weakness. So besides having a ground type, I wanted to cover that asset with this thing. And this thing is not also weak to like Edgequake either, like my Beakervolt and Talonflame are regards to facing a ground type in itself. So I think when you just look at it from that point of angle and thinking about the regenerator core I can put it into place, this was really solid asset for me to add on this roster and have just additional just natural bulk on the team. And we know how much I like to have balanced teams with a good defensive backbone, and Tangela fits into that role really nicely for us. So now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 9. And in round 9 I decided to go after Weezing, the regular Weezing of course, to be my poison type of this draft. And this is like similar to Tangela, it's kind of like fulfilling the typings that I was still needing to go after. And this is here to be a physical defensive wall for those pesty fighting types that are very deadly in this low tier format. Fighting types are usually seen as one of the best or best typings in a low tier metagame, what I've been seeing and like noticing myself as I look at the tiers, that what strong things are allowed. And Weezing just fulfills that need so well that I need to have some sort of answer to those things. It can check so many other things as well that it's not necessarily weak to, and combined with Levitate, when I use it as its ability, it basically just has one weakness in Psychic, which makes it such a good wall, man. So good. But now, combine the fact that it got access to neutralizing gas, it means that I also can use it as a grounded poison type if I see Toxic Spikes being a really big threat to my building from my opposing side. So I like to have that asset to myself to cover from that weakness, and I can punish them myself if my opponent doesn't have a grounded poison type, or I seem being very unlikely to come into that matchup because how the matchup is looking from each side. So I can utilize that to my asset in itself. And Weezing just overall, I have had some experience with it even in a standard play. For its value, it's always done its job, and I think at a low tier meta game, it's gonna obviously do a lot better and be that another additional wall alongside with the other things that I already have that I think it's gonna do pretty well for our team. So that's pretty much for Weezing. So now let's go and see what I was able to select in round 10. And as my second last pick and the round 10 pick that I decided to go after was Basculin for the 5 points. And just before doing this pick, I was actually thinking so hard what I'm going to do with these last 9 points with my 2 picks left. And I was really thinking hard that do I want a fairy type and do I really want to spend my points on them. But I decided for now, just spoiling my last pick, I will not have a fairy type in this draft. And I did it so because a lot of teams don't really have a strong dragon type, and the dragon typing is usually the premier reason why in a standard draft league metagame you want to have a fairy type. But in this metagame there won't be too many teams that even have a dragon type in the first place, and if they do, they are not as scary in my opinion that you would need a fairy type in your draft to check them. So instead of that, I just took away the mindset of that you just don't need a fairy type. Pick something else that fits in your team nicely and adds more additional offensive pressure. And that's what I did with Basculin. Basculin with the adaptability hits so hard, man. This mon, now access to flip turn can be a phenomenal choice specs, choice pad, or even choice scarf user in this kind of like meta game, like a similar way how you would use like a Darmanitan for example, but obviously with a different typing and different move pool, but the concept is the same basically. It's a strong offensive mon with momentum and provides more volt turn action to my team in it. So we have teleport from Shuckleking, U-turn from Talonflame, Volt Switch from Beakervolt, and now we have Flip Turn coming out of our little fish guy over here being Basculin. And this is a mod that I never used as well, but I have seen like in Generation 8, in NU or PU, whatever tier it's always been in. I've seen some showdown plays when Basculin has been used, and I've been pleasantly surprised how efficient it is in those tiers. So I'm thinking that okay, since it can do those kind of things in a standard play, it probably can do similar things in a Draft League metagame as well, and I already have a very good way to deal with bulky water types in Beakervolt. So if I add another mod that may be luring those things in, and I can take that as an advantage and go into Beakervolt and start shuffling them around, that might not be that bad of an idea to have in my draft. And I think Basculin on my draft has a pretty good fit. And this is a proper opportunity for me to try it out, and it's been a mod that in a standard draft league format might be hard to fit in your drafts. It can be, and it can be a pretty nice like a last round pick or your tier 5 pick or whatever it would be, but in this format, in 5 points, it could be slept on a little bit. This might be a mod that could surprise us how good we can be in a low draft league metagame. But now, that's it for our little guy here, being the Basculin, and let's go and see what is gonna be my last pick of the draft. And as my last round pick, I decided to go after Solrock. Now, originally the idea was to pick Lunaton as my last round pick, because they're like a power-up Meteor Beam and just additional special attack look appealing to me. And I wanted a rock type on this team. One of the reasons why I wanted to add a rock type to this team was that I wanted to add an additional flying resist other than Copperassa. So that's one of the premier reasons that I decided that, you know what, on a low tier format, instead of having a fairy type, I think that rock type will be more necessary going forward, seeing that how many flying types have been drafted by the other teams. And like myself, I have a Talonflame, so there might be teams that have similar kind of fast flying type that they want to have and utilize in their matchup. So I want to have that additional flying resist. It gives me a defensive rocker as well, whereas at this point the only rockers that I had were the Copperassa and Golurk that I picked back to back. So in that regard, I thought it was a nice fit, and still Solrock can, similar to Lunaton, while it's not the special attacker I was still hoping to add, it's still the rock typing that I wanted to still have for my team. And thankfully with the Levitate, it's a rock type that doesn't add me a crown weakness either, and with being a pop psychic, it's not an additional fighting weakness as well. So the psychic typing kind of works along with its ability that it doesn't add into certain common typing weaknesses that you could have otherwise picking a rock type. So I think in that regard, Solrock will be pretty solid addition. In all honesty, with being in my last round pick, I expect to be both the least, and it's also my lowest point mod in itself at 4 points. But that is going to be my draft for the APA Academy in low tier format. Let me know in the comment section how you like the draft. What are your favorite mons that I picked together in this draft, and what do you think I could have done better in this draft? Let me know, because in all honesty, any kind of criticism is welcome, because like I said, I'm new to this kind of format, so I might just look over very noticeable things for people that have done this format a lot more than I have, and maybe can point me out that hey, you could look to change this thing in the future, and maybe you're better off doing it this way instead. But either way, let me know how you like the team in comment section below, and stay tuned for the week 1 when we go up against JBWestside to open our season. I'm really excited for that game, and hopefully you all as well. And until then, thank you yet again for watching. I'm gonna be seeing you guys later.